Call the Special Ways and Means Committee to order. It's a couple items on the agenda, overall budget reduction, and also we got Christina here from Sbdc. She's going to give a presentation. So have at it. Thank you.
Feels odd walking in front of her. Well, thank you guys for inviting me to speak. Just an update on the Sbdc. For the past, about 18 months, I know I've been a little bit MIA. Believe it or not, I've been working really hard through at home because I am a University of Minnesota employee. We had to work from home until 1st of August. So tonight I'm going to give you an update of what happened in 2020 along with what happened in 2021. So that you guys can understand, what we've been busy doing, who we've been helping, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And we'll just get going on that. So, first slide, Chad. So just a little bit about me. I grew up in International Falls. And I have 2 adult children who both live up there. I have a son getting married next fall. I'm excited about that. Lifelong equine and lover and competitor. I have a bachelor's degree of business from BSU, and I am a certified EDFP, Economic Development Finance Professional. I am certified for that. Some of my past jobs that brought me here, way back when, I was a paralegal, a human resources, farm manager, manufacturing plant manager, real estate broker owner, and before I came here, I was the economic development director for Pennington County and Thief River Falls. And then I came here as an advisor for the Sbdc and University of Minnesota. My COVID endeavors, because we all had those, right? I did get my Minnesota real estate license, so I am a real estate agent for Keller Williams here. And I'm starting playing with the idea of starting a home and office organization business, because I started going through all my stuff at home and I kind of thought that was fun. So that's a little bit about me. Next slide. So the Sbdc, a lot of people say, what does that do? So the Small Business Development Center, or the Sbdc, the program is designed to deliver up-to-date counseling, training, and technical assistance in all aspects of small business management. And yes, I am going to read this because this comes directly from the SBA. The Sbdc services that we provide they include but are not limited to assisting small businesses with financial, marketing, production, legal organization, engineering, technical problems, and feasibility studies. We work with businesses in international trade, technical assistance, procurement, venture capital formation, and rural development. Next slide, please. We do also make special efforts to reach the minority members of socially disadvantaged and economically disadvantaged groups, veterans, women, and disabled. Our assistance is provided to both current and potential small business owners. And right now, I would have to say it's pretty much 50-50, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. We also provide assistance to small businesses applying for the SBIR or Small Business Innovation and Research grants from the different federal agencies. Next slide, please. Some goals that I'm working on right now. I am working with the University of Minnesota and DEED, Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. We're creating a externship program for students, both current students and those that as they graduate. What I'm hearing from the community, or from my businesses, my clients, and other businesses I talk to, not just my clients, everybody needs help, right? And they can't get the help. They don't just need a warm body all the time. Lots of times they need somebody who has special qualifications, special talents. And that's where the university can come in to play and to help with that. Typically, education will look to the Crystal Sugars, the DigiKeys, the larger employers. But it's our small downtown businesses that need the help. And lots of times it might be marketing, it might be accounting. So it is specialty that they can get trained for at the university. So we're working with DEED, like I said, the University of Minnesota down in the cities along with Crookston. We're putting together a program where it will be statewide eventually. Pilot program will start probably in the spring. We thought we'd get it this fall, but it just was bigger than we thought, so it'll be starting in the spring. And then one really great thing that happened this year that I'm so excited about was that the Small Business Administration, the SBA, finally said that the SBDC can start marketing themselves. Before this, people only found out about us by word of mouth, or by their lender, or an economic development group. People didn't know where to go. They'd go to their bank, and the bank will, I'll help you figure out a financial projection. But they really didn't get the help with their business plan and everything. So now we can finally help them with everything that they need, and we can market it. Next slide, please. I do have a couple 30-second videos that the SBDC has created I'd like to play for you, because these are going to be out there on TV, social media, everywhere. Thank you.
Wanted, dreamers with an idea for a new business, innovators ready to grow something new from the ground up, and the doers necessary to do the hard work it takes to build a new business. Contact your nearest small business development center today by going to mnsbdc.com. There you can find the SBDC in your neighborhood with staff and partners on hand to help small business owners develop a business plan, do marketing and research, set up their accounting, gain access to capital, and much more. So go to mnsbdc.com to learn more.
And the next one.
Do you run a small business in Minnesota? Are you trying to expand your operations? Or need help adjusting to changes brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic? Then contact your local small business development center.
We'd like you to know the SBDC is here to help you be the best entrepreneur you can be, whether it's starting a brand new business or trying to overcome a challenge in your 100-year-old company.
These are hard times, but if you need help with your business, small business development centers have real professionals standing by, ready to help you develop your business plan, do marketing and research, set up your accounting, gain access to capital, and much more. And they do it all for free. So reach out to your regional small business development center by emailing nwsbdc@nwmf.org or by calling 218-755-4255.
Thank you, Chad. So to give you an update of what we've been working on, I've been working on over the past year, in the calendar year 2020, the SBDC served, and because I'm the one on this region, I have to say it's mostly me. We served over 60 clients, and how we quantify that is if I talk to them for more than five hours. Okay, so we do have people who will you'll talk to them, an hour total, or maybe through COVID, we would have random people that would call in, right? So 60 clients. We accessed over $2 million, $2,239,000. The sales revenue that we either created or were able to save is just under $10 million. That's huge for this area. Those are huge numbers. So far, January to July, in 2021, we have over 32 clients. We've accessed over $775,000 in capital, and we've saved or created over $3.6 million in sales. Those are really big numbers for our area. Considering Crookston is, not huge. It's big, but it's not Minneapolis. So I think these numbers are really good. Next slide, please. And to give you an idea of what Northwest Minnesota region did for just the COVID-related funding, we were approved for $7.4 million. Clients with disaster-related counseling, we served 204. We supported 908 jobs and full-time jobs and 643 part-time jobs. We did have clients who would call in a one-time deal. You know, does my business qualify for this COVID program, or, you know, what can we do for that? So that was about 29. There were clients, unfortunately, that all the programs that were out there for the COVID-related funding assistance, they didn't qualify. And I have to be honest with you, my heart broke for everyone I talked to. And those were mostly the people who worked from home. Truck drivers, you know, they worked over the road, but their office was their kitchen table. They didn't qualify, you know. A lot of people, I have a shop out in my garage, didn't qualify. That's one place I think that our COVID funding fell down and did not support our small businesses. The lady who has a travel agency out of her home doesn't qualify. Anything you do out of your home, you did not qualify for, so it's kind of sad. Next slide, please. The types of businesses that I have worked with and I continue to work with, I just gave you a list because I am under NDA with all of my clients. I'm not allowed to tell you who they are unless they choose to come forward. Restaurants and cafes, obviously, right? They were shut down. It was really hard for them. Grocery stores, manufacturing, lawn care, technology, hair salons, childcare, property management companies. They were hit hard when the moratoriums came on. Home builders, professional service people, food trucks, gyms, retail. I have some veteran-owned businesses, new businesses. Believe it or not, COVID has brought on a whole new group of people who want to start their own business. Sometimes it's crazy how many people sign up, and we're working on so many business plans all at once. It's amazing. People who have purchased existing businesses. We've had a lot of businesses change hands, and some of them we know about and some we don't. It's done on the backside. And then the bad one is the businesses that had to close. Those were the hard ones. We did everything we can to help them, and that just didn't work. Next slide, please. I do have a testimonial I want to share with you, and I know it's a lot, so I'm going to read. The first paragraph just talks about when the client originally started working with the Sbdc a number of years ago. In 2019, this client reached out to me and asked me to help him. And this part talks about the time during COVID, and I'll read it for you. I reached out to Christine in the late summer of 2019. Her assistance has been invaluable to my company and more recently to my mental health. As a small business owner trying to cope with all that has followed this pandemic, her assistance to keep me connected to what help was available has been huge. Our weekly conversations have been one of the few pick-me-ups I've gotten while watching my business grind to a halt after posting growth in 12 out of our first 13 years of operation. She managed to keep me focused and planning for the future when it would have been so much easier to just crawl into a shell and wait for things to return to normal. What would normal be? How are other businesses in our areas dealing with things? How are other businesses like mine making things work? These are all things we have covered and we continue to cover. You know, when we're in the middle of everyday business, it's one thing, but when we're in the middle of the pandemic, and I had businesses call me, and still do, not as much right now as they did last year, but they call on weekends, on nights, anytime, and I'm there. You know, you do become a counselor to them because they're seeing their business, you know, grind to a halt. what do we do? How do we do it? Some never reached out to you, and then you have to reach out to them. But, you know, it's the ones that you know, I didn't realize I made this much of an impact, let's just say that. Pretty amazing. I did ask the person if I could read this tonight, and they did agree to that. So, next slide, please. So some of the things I'm working on right now. For trainings, I'm back to doing in-person workshops. I had one on the end of August, and I had 6 people sign up and 5 that showed up, which is huge because everybody got so zoomed out and everything. We were having a hard time getting people to actually want to start coming to workshops again. Excuse me. So the next one I have coming up is Starting Your Business in Minnesota. It's here at Valley Tech Park. It's on the 28th of this month. It starts at 11:30. We'll be done about 1 o'clock, depending on how many people show up and how many questions. I already have 3 people signed up, so I'm excited about that. I will do the same workshops in East Grand Forks and Thief River Falls in October. In November, I have Starting a Business While Working Full-Time. I'll be presenting that here in Crookston. A lot of people want to start businesses, but they're scared, you know, they're not quite ready to break loose of their job yet, so that'll be really good. East Grand Forks, I'm going to be doing starting a food truck business, and then in Thief River Falls, I'll do starting a home business for seniors. So we have a lot of senior citizens who want to start their own business, and so I'll be working with them on that. Those 2 I will bring back to Crookston, probably in 2022. And then in December, depending on the weather and everything, I'm looking at doing another Starting Your Business in Minnesota in Crookston. Some of the upcoming ones for 2022 would be the Starting Your Business will be ongoing. Starting a retail business, succession planning. Succession planning is huge. They always say you should start with the end in mind, and it's true. You need to, when you start your business, you need to be thinking about how you're going to get out of it and when. Building and managing teams, home businesses for seniors, to start different ideas of what kind of a business a senior citizen can start. Marketing and branding your business and working on financials and cash flow. I have a bunch of other ones, but those are just kind of the ones I think are gonna, people are asking me for those workshops now, so. Next slide, please. Okay, so I did bring with me Mitchell Berg from, he is the associate director from the Vadine Center in Crookston, who I fall under. And I am going to, before you come up, I do want to explain to you guys, so I know I've had some people ask me before the meeting tonight, how the Sbdc works. So the Sbdc, the University of Minnesota has a contract with the Northwest Minnesota Foundation for Sbdc services. Okay, so, and I am a University of Minnesota Crookston employee. And when I first started working, I fell under Mary, Chancellor Mary, then under Michelle, and now under the Vadine Center. So they are my employer. And Mitch is the associate director of the Vadine Center, so he's going to tell you just a little bit about that in just a short time.
Well, thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. If you can believe it, I got my master's in Urban Regional Studies and Public Administration. So for 20 years, I've been on that side of the dais. It is wonderful to be able to be on the opposite side. And this is my very first meeting of that, so I appreciate the opportunity to present to you guys. As Christine has said, we are the Vadine Center, and Christine has been under a few different offices of the university, but I gotta admit, this is the right place for her, and I'll explain to you why. So if you want to scroll down a little bit, that describes some of the programs of the Vadine Center, but really, here's what we have. We have Small Business Development Center, which is what Christine does. We also have a program called RSVP, and they're Retired Senior Group. And what I love about the RSVP program, and I'm going to recite some pre-COVID statistics just because things weren't right during the pandemic. Primarily, we rely heavily on seniors age 55 and over. They do a handyman program, so seniors that need help, if it's doing light repairs to their house, they can call on this senior group. The senior group also helps with the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon campaign that's ran through Polk County. We also do a program that helps seniors get groceries. And we also do some reading programs where seniors go into the public schools and read to kids. And with that, with all the volunteer programs and everything else, and this is primarily from Crookston, because this is where we have the majority of our programs, 15,000 volunteer hours in 2019 we ran through the Vidine Center. So we have the RSVP program, we've got Sbdc, we also have the EDA Center. And the EDA Center, I apologize, I haven't had a good chance to talk to Amy about if you guys have utilized them, but I do know that surrounding communities have used them, surrounding businesses have used them too. If they want to, for instance, right now, everyone's heard Walk On Farms, which is a 10,000 dairy cattle facility out in Gary, Minnesota. We've reached out, or the EDA directors reached out to us to see if we can do an economic impact study of how much that's going to generate in terms of economic development output once that new facility comes into Norman County. So there's a business that's coming in. For instance, I heard that there might be an ethanol facility coming into town. I heard again there might be a sourdough bread facility coming into town. If there's anybody that wants to hear about what type of economic output that's going to generate, you know, you can call the EDA Center and we can put together those statistics for you. So we've got that, we've got Sbdc, we've got the RSVP, and then there's kind of me. And then what we do too is we've done some other fun programs. Right now, I've submitted a $300,000 small business partnership grant, and it really complements a lot of the stuff that Christine does. She does a lot of small group trainings. One of the things that I love about trainings is that they give people just a lot of information, gets them really excited about, you know, what they want to do. And then it seems like, okay, you know, we lose them because we don't do a good enough follow-up job. Some of this money in the grant is to create some cohorted networks so that people can, within certain clusters, within different industry clusters, can come together, and we'll provide them with just a peer-to-peer network of support. We'll also bring guest speakers, things that can help them along their journey. So it's not just, okay, here's the training and have a great day. The Vidine Center, so really how I look at it is it's a tool for communities. It's a tool for businesses. It's a tool for nonprofits to be able to also network the university through all of these organizations. And one of the other components of having RSVP, the Vidine Center, Sbdc, is we touch on everybody, right? From those students, actually from high school, because we want to expose kids into career paths. Career paths that will make them, one, be interested in staying in Crookston, but also career paths that will accelerate and grow this rural economy of ours. So we want to hit those. We want to hit the emerging entrepreneurial. We want to hit the mature business. And we want to hit those that are seniors and they're looking to say, you know what, I've still got something of value to contribute to the community. And so how can we bring that talent to even helping those small business entrepreneurs with marketing, with their skill sets that they have brought forward over the years, and then as well to work with our youngest generation to get them excited about careers as well. So with that, I think I'm gonna ask Christine to come up too. Basically, my understanding has been, Christine has, again, she's with the Northwest Minnesota Foundation. Typically, this is a unique partnership to have Christine with UMC. Typically, it's at the Northwest Minnesota Foundation. The value of having Christine in Crookston is that many of you guys know our small business owners are busy, right? They don't have time to go all the way to Bemidji to interact with a small business development consultant. So what Christine has done, or what UMC has done, is we've recognized that, and we brought Christine to Crookston. And I think it's really been a value-added thing to have her here because she is available to meet with our small businesses right here within the city of Crookston. So having said that, without the Small Business Development Center, that will be down at the Northwest Minnesota Foundation. The unique thing about having them up here, though, is there's, I believe, a 20% cost share that we need to provide in order to have her here. And that's where, in the past, the Cheetah has been involved. They've helped to contribute, what's $10,000 towards that? For the past couple of years. It's a very small amount, given the totality of, the SBDC program, but we found that it's been a great partnership. But with that, and I should say that it's a unique thing, because Cheetah is no longer in existence, there's a governance rule that doesn't permit a city to give money directly to the small business development.
Mitch, Cheetah is still in existence. It just has a new board.
Oh, okay, well, that might still qualify then, thank you. That Cheetah still could, but really how we look at it is, if you were to reapply that $10,000, it would go to the Vadine Center, which is the University of Minnesota Crookston, which it would provide a lot more services than simply what Christine can provide. And, if that's something that helps to explain it to taxpayers, because again, I've been a city administrator, I know how important it is to be able to explain something to a taxpayer that might be a little irate and wondering why you're spending their money, to say that this is to help support the RSVP program, the Small Business Development Center, and the other functions that provide economic development assistance through Vadine. So with that, I know we went through a lot, so we really want to be here for any questions that you may have on any of the past slides that Christine's given, or any questions to me.
Go to the last page, Chad. Oh, go up back one. So the current partners that we had in 2021 and 2020 were the SBA. So the SBDC is 50% funded by the SBA. The other 50% comes, 25% of that comes from Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. Sorry, I'll step up. And so the remaining 25% comes from Northwest Minnesota Foundation, the University of Minnesota Crookston, East Grand Forks EDA, and then Cheetah in the past. And before that, I think when I first started, it came from the city as well, correct?
One time,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, I think that was when it started.
you're right.
Right. So, so our committed partners for 2022 include all of the above with, and I did not put Cheetah in there because I wasn't sure if you were going to recommit, or if, and if you did, where that would come from, if it was city or Cheetah. So I left that off. The city of East Grand Forks has already committed to an additional $10,000 for 2022. So that's kind of in a nutshell where that comes from. Does that make sense?
How big of an area do you cover?
So my area that I try to focus on is Boston to East Grand Forks.
Yep.
And then I think my farthest north client would be a little ways north of Thief River Falls.
How about south?
South, I go to Ada.
Ada?
I do have a client in Monoman.
Okay. Do any of those cities contribute anything?
They have not to right now. Last year, I honestly did not specifically, well, you know, I didn't come out and do a presentation,
Right.
correct? I did not specifically ask, especially of the small communities, because to be honest, I'd rather have them, during COVID, I would have rather had everybody give their money to their small businesses. The EDA, I can't remember if it's Norman County or Ada, have said that they would be interested. So I have a presentation to do to them. But with COVID, I really, they run on a very short, small budget as it is. And with Thief River Falls, I'm presenting to them tomorrow night. So I can't give you an answer on them right now.
Thank you.
So can I ask if Thief River does decide to put money towards this, and I don't recall what the other city was, does that mean that our portion of monies that you would possibly need could be less than the 10,000?
So your question was, if somebody else contributes, would that mean your contribution would be less? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so what we do is we're willing to accept any denomination that somebody wants to contribute. In the past, years before me, a lender, say a bank, would maybe contribute $100. The SBDC does not, you know, and I shouldn't speak because, again, this is for the university, but in the past, the SBDC suggests, I'm not sure who came up with the 10 or 15,000 that the city and Cheetah contributed.
Well, I think that was when it first started up.
Okay.
Mary come to Cheetah, it was too late in the year for her to apply through the university to
Okay.
get the funds she needed, so she needed that 30 grand.
Okay,
And it was 15 from the city and 15 from Cheetah.
okay.
And then that was supposed to be just a one-time deal, and
Sure.
it's been going ever since. You know, I mean,
Yeah, so, you know, we're more than happy to take any denomination that anybody wants to contribute, whether it's city, county, EDA, banks, businesses. They can all contribute, depending on the value they see in it. And I guess that's, with East Grand Forks, I know that was the value they put on it.
What's your future plans for, is this ever gonna be self-sufficient organization? When it started, it was supposed to get started by the contributions that we made over the years, saying that you were gonna be self-sufficient within 2, and
So I would refer that to the Vadine Center because that's the new department I'm under. So that's not my call.
Well, and I would say, you know, I would echo with Christine. You know, I would say that the Vidine is, you know, somewhat self-sufficient. It is right now, we're operating kind of on an endowment. With everything, you know, there's a clock that's ticking. I think what we're trying to do through the Vidine Center is to really, as what Christine said, provide value. And, you know, it's really what can we do? And I feel that, you know, there are things that we can do more if we had just more resources. I don't want to sound like, you know, something you've heard over and over and over, but, you know, me just having started in the position since June, you know, I can see that we too have constraints that are operating against us. You know, there's a tug and pull, and I think though, you know, it's really what do you see as a value? We hope that we can do some of these things, you know, because it's the funding that we get from taxpayer dollars, you know, that provide that direct service to your residents and to your businesses.
Mitch,
Yes.
could you give us a ballpark? I think I had SBDC was 50% and then deed is 25, is that right, contribution? How big of a gap are you trying to fill with the other 25%?
Yeah,
I mean, I assume that covers salary,
Yeah.
Cheetah rent, I don't know if, it's probably not charging a lot to UMC.
Cheetah in the past has been just contributing the space.
Okay.
Free of charge because of the partnership.
Okay, so I think what might help, like Councilmember Jurdy asking, is just trying to identify what, there are certainly costs for running your office here, kind of what gap you're trying to cover in that last 25%, or what that might cover, what would you not be able to accomplish if you weren't able to bring that in?
I think what we can do is, we can get some information back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mitch, can I just ask one more question? In looking at this, you had mentioned that, we saw value in having the SBDA in Crookston, right? So they wouldn't be in the Northwest Minnesota Foundation space, I'm assuming. Depending on what is contributed from the city, does that affect whether or not Christine stays in Crookston?
Well, as much as I would love to have Christine stay in Crookston, one of the things that shocked me about was the fact that she is on a 6-month contract, and most other SBDC representatives are on a year contract. And so I don't want to say anything that's inappropriate, but I will say that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but, as much as UMC would love to have her there, I don't always think that it is in our control. Some of it may have to do with with Northwest Minnesota Foundation, and so as well as the SBDC main office. And so for them to know, though, that she's in stable footing in Crookston, I think will at least allay any concerns that UMC will have, as well as the community, that she might be pulled. And I'm not saying this at all as any type of a threat, because I hope it's not, but it is something that I know Christina is a little bit concerned about.
So the reason for the 6-month contracts, I am, as an employee of the university, I'm under a 1-year contract, right? But the contract with the SBDC is 6 months. And the reason for that is because the university runs on a fiscal year and the Northwest Foundation runs on a calendar year. So to make the funding sources all match up, they decided to go to a 6-month. This is the first year we've done this, to go to a 6 month. So January to the end of June, and the contract is renewed and gone on after that. In answer to your question, as long as I am a University of Minnesota employee representing the small business development centers in Northwest Minnesota, I will service, as will my counterparts, service Northwest Minnesota businesses, whether you contribute or not. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Does it help the budget? Yeah, it helps it a lot. $100 helps. Of course, nobody likes those small numbers, but it does. Everything helps. And so, but either way, I'm here for the businesses. I'm not here to get rich. If I was, I'd go out and start my own consulting business and charge everybody. But I'm here to help the businesses, and if you guys feel value in that, we would appreciate your contribution. You can see and feel value for that and still not contribute. I think it's a good partnership between the University of Minnesota and the city to do something, but
Is there a way to break down which communities got support from you, and does that make sense? If City of Crookston or Cheetah is contributing $10,000, and let's just say there's a lot of support given to a city that maybe did not contribute to small businesses.
So because we are funded mainly by the SBA, the Small Business Administration, we have to service businesses no matter where they're at. I can give you, I can run reports on a county-wide basis of, Polk County this, Pennington County that. I can break down Crookston and East Grand Forks just because you're larger. When it comes to Thief River Falls, it's like Thief River Falls, St. Hilaire, and one other little town. I can't break that down.
Okay.
Beltrami County, you know.
I think we can break down total number versus Crookston and then provide that to you.
Yeah. But when you get outside of our immediate area, now you have other consultants, you know, that are also assisting businesses, so.
Okay.
Not
You know,
saying it can't be done, it's just,
You know, Christine, depending on, you know, I can't make a promise where we are or we're going to land with the budgeting, but I would like to see that if, you know, we are contributing, that, you know, we're being really purposeful about maybe sharing wider and somehow making maybe your services a little bit more available and visible as far as the city is concerned. You know, it sounds like you have some great programming, but, you know, maybe we can get that links to our website on that, you know, something that, you know, maybe there's something that we're putting on our info wall in City Hall when people walk in or considering things, but I'd like to see more of an outreach in our area, especially since we are one of the few cities that is contributing to this program.
definitely, yep.
And that's where I think Christine said that she's able now to do more outreach. You know, there's even a city, well, I think there's a city newsletter that comes out each month, right?
Not from City Hall.
Oh,
County, I think.
okay.
Has.
But we could even work with,
I usually work with the chambers, and they put out the information. But yeah, I mean, it can, you know, it's all digital right now, so it can, you know, pretty much go anywhere.
And just for clarification, both for the council and Mitch and Christine, the budgeted item that you had asked for further information on is actually the contribution that the city makes to Cheetah that then is made available to allocate to SBDC. So just so you guys were all clear about kind of the vehicle and how that would look.
And I wasn't really sure, you know, why it did that, it just
Yeah.
did it.
For the money that we haven't, you know, invested in SBDC over the past years, do you think, I don't know, my question is do you think Crookston is getting their bang for their buck?
I think you are, just because I know the clients I talk to every week and lots of them every day. You know,
Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
oh, no, I was just gonna say, you know, for the clients that I talk to, for the assistance that's given, yeah.
I think if I could expand, you know, having Christine again with the SBDC here in town is very invaluable. I don't want to downplay my employer here, but I know that universities are really good at telling people how they think they ought to do their job. And so having Christine here, it affords the opportunity for me to say, Christine, what are the businesses in Crookston saying that they need? You know, because she has that interaction daily with these businesses. And so when we're creating, if we get this grant, hopefully, you know, yes, we'll do direct outreach to businesses, but sometimes too, it's that one-on-one, you know, where we say, hey, you know, would you want to participate in this class? And I can get that information to some extent from Christine, so that we can, you know, personally get more people involved. And I would say we wouldn't be able to do that if it weren't for the fact that we had that SBDC right in Crookston.
Christine, do you think that the new organizational structure will help you and the university be involved with our city more?
The new organizational structure of Cheetah, or?
Of what you just.
Oh, with the Bedeen Center?
Right, the Bedeen Center involved with the whole process.
Sure. You know, I do, because they do economic development, right? I do economic development. I do it more on a one-on-one basis with the small businesses and helping them, but I do feel like I have a little bit more support. I think I've found a home now with the Bedeen Center, because we have the same mission, right? I think that you know, I can tell you right now, a lot of the projects that Craig worked on with Cheetah, when Cheetah worked on, I probably worked with the client first. Not all of them, but a good share of them. they'd come to him and he'd send them over to me, and we'd start with the business plan, and then we'd do the financial projections, and when it came funding, and if we had questions, we'd go back, you know. So I mean, the partnership between, and I'm gonna say the city, or Cheetah, the partnership between the two has been there since I started. And coming with an economic development background, I have that knowledge of what's out there. If somebody needs deed funding for a MIF or job creation funds or anything like that, I've done all those things. So I have that little bit of extra. I'm not just somebody who's had a lot of jobs, but I've had the experience, so I can bring that to all these projects, even the bigger ones.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you talk about, you know, the businesses don't just want bodies sometimes, they want experience. Do you work with, say, Thief River Tech and East Grand Forks Tech to, you know, and stuff with the business? Do they contribute anything to any of this stuff? Because, I mean, if you got a school that's putting their students in a job, more students are likely to go to that school.
Right.
So that's some value to them too.
Definitely.
You know.
So they, again, we were working on that before COVID started.
Yeah.
I had appointments set up with Dennis Bona, and now he's gone.
Okay.
And COVID's kind of over, we hope. And so recreating that partnership, but I have talked to like their accounting department.
Okay.
We have, I can't tell you how many of my clients need somebody to help with accounting. And it's like, you know, the university can supply some and the VOTEC can supply some, and we're working on that. And they're all about this whole internship program, so we'll be bringing them in as well, and the ask will be there.
Okay.
Again, it's every individual community and entity's decision and choice, whether they want to contribute financially or not.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, my job is to support my small businesses. And I say mine because I get to know them that personally, and when they hurt, I hurt, and when they succeed, I feel like I succeed.
Good.
Okay. Anything else? My office is in Valley Tech. Y'all pretty much know where I'm at. Let me know if you want to visit about anything. Come in my office, everything's 100% confidential when we shut the door, so if you have questions or whatever, just let me know.
And I'll just say too that for the two council members, I'd raised some good questions about our numbers as well as kind of what type of gap we need to address, as well as what services might we not be able to afford. I'll be able to work with your city administrator to get that addressed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Overall budget reduction.
Chad, would you put my first sheet, the 2022 budget worksheet up? You, each of you should have a copy at your desk. And Christy, did you receive yours in your email?
Let me look here, Amy.
Okay. You may be able to see it on the screen, but I sent it later this afternoon, maybe evening. What is up on the screens and what you have in front of you is similar to what we saw last Monday night, but this will include the updates. I worked with staff going from the 12% we looked at last week down to 10%. So I'm not going to have Chad throw this one up yet, but on your second page behind you, there's a list of some of the reductions that we went through with notes on the side. I'm not going to read through every single one of those, but there are some more significant changes and adjustments I'd like to talk through on this, through this version, if you will, of the budget. Last meeting, Councilmember Melby actually brought up a couple things that we went back and talked at staff level about. One of them was if we had the funds in our municipal land and building to support the movement of the $35,000 that was allocated to the library, if that could be moved to our municipal land and building fund. We believe that it can right now. We do need to be more purposeful at year end of bringing to you when there's a recommendation to make transfers into that, and it's based on reserve levels, so we'll be doing that. That did relieve the general fund, or your levied funds of $35,000, so that movement was made. We went through and looked at many of our funds and budget lines for travel and training expense. There are still some associations and agencies that are offering a hybrid where you can go in person or online. Some are still just online, and we'd like to try to take advantage of that through next year and reduce some of that. I do think there's value in going in person, but while COVID and vaccinations and all that are still up in the air, we did reduce many of our travel and training expense lines to try to take advantage of some virtual trainings. The election judge pay was down because this will be a non-presidential election, and that does affect how many people we need working. We did make a reduction in the general fund professional fees. We had kept in there $20,000. It was the line that Cheetah's annual allocation was transferred through. We had initially left $20,000 in there and reduced that down to 25, so took another 10 off of that. 15 of that is the $15,000 contribution that we just discussed for the SBDC. So that's what that remaining 25,000 is.
Didn't she just say 10,000?
That's what, well, that's, the city has been allocating 15 to Cheetah. So I will have to do some looking on the other side of that on.
But I think with that being said, I think Cheetah decided to just donate the 10, because they're trying to wean themselves off of this every year thing.
Right. So that would be an area we could certainly make an adjustment on the city side to align with what that is going. I did make a note of that when she was speaking. We had talked about the fees last week. So what we had presented to you last week was that line was 171,000 with 115 being criminal, and we had 56 in for civil, which we had calculated to about 400 hours. Comments were just made to make sure that we really set that appropriately. We sat back down, kind of looked at average hours, talked to Corky a little bit, still on some of the changes we want to make with doing some of the things here at City Hall first. We've got our clerk's office that is getting stronger, have some templates there. We did come back and adjusted that $4,000 up. You'll see that on your adjustment sheet. That allowed about 29 more hours and a $4,000 difference. It really did not have a huge impact overall. We were prepared to bring that back down if we felt like we needed to or needed some room. So right now what you see in the legal expense line includes that $4,000 adjustment.
So 4,000 more added to the legal?
Yes, the response last week was to look and make sure we did not cut too deeply. And so we did take another look at that. So that's, yeah. That was on the civil portion of that.
Now, are these county attorneys that we hire, how is this?
The county attorney?
Yeah, I mean,
No, the civil and the criminal will be our city prosecutor and our city attorney.
Okay.
Yeah. And both right now are through the Reynolds Law Firm.
is there any way that we can just hire and have a city attorney rather than hiring one from someplace? Can we, as a city employee?
You could do
Would
that, but it's
would
going to
that be-
cost you more than $60,000.
Well, we're paying 175 here.
Well,
so-
but some of that is criminal, so you're probably, I have not known a scenario where your city prosecutor and your city attorney are the same person. So, they're.
I just think we gotta try and cut these legal fees some. I mean, they're getting,
Well,
that's
your,
out of line, I feel.
your criminal is not likely gonna go down. And your civil, you can, and I have been, cutting back, and that does mean at times we're not able to move forward on some things. And so that's, the proposal that we put in front of you sets a monthly amount where you don't have to so much worry. We still want to monitor and track that, but you don't have to necessarily worry in the last half of the year about not moving an ordinance change forward or a land acquisition, those types of things.
So is there an actual amount spent, say, like the last 3 or 5 years per year?
Yes, on, I didn't bring those with me this time. Yes, like,
So, because I think what you're saying is we've always budgeted, or really, we didn't budget well on it, we always overshoot our budget. And what you're trying to do is budget accordingly based on what we've actually spent the last few years, correct?
yes, so I'm gonna pull it up now, but the budget was set at 110,000. That included criminal and civil, and I think it was last changed in 2016. So it's been at that 110. 2021, 2020, 2019, all have exceeded that budget. So what we should have done after 2019 is looked at like 137,000 budget. 2021 really should have been about 149 if we were looking at actuals. So we really have not kept up with adjustments to our budget in that sense. And then this year, we talked a little bit about this last week. We do believe there were epitome things and Cheetah, myself being new to Minnesota, getting used to some of the changes in Minnesota law from Kansas law, that we don't expect to see year over year. However, there are things, we won't be able to control necessarily land acquisition. There's cleanup things, contracts, our leases, all of those things really should, and I don't necessarily mean that our city attorney is drafting all of those. Oftentimes, we will ask an agency to have their legal team draft it so we can look at it and make sure that what we believe is needed to protect the city is in it, and that does save us some time. So we actively pursue those other methods. Let's see, I was trying to pull that up here. But, Councilmember Clott, you are correct that part of the issue here is that civil expenses are going up. Will they level out? Possibly. Will they go up? Possibly.
Is there a trend that you see from year to year of about how much they're increasing?
On these criminal,
Civil,
civil?
yeah.
That one's been really all over the place. And this is my understanding only, and I wasn't here, but I do understand that there were years where the city attorney was asked not to attend meetings. I think the file at the city attorney's office for the city was very small and was relatively inactive. I am seeing things that we should have had our attorney's eyes on. So our civil bills have been low in some years and higher in others, probably depending on and driven by items before them, like Epitome Energy, certainly required some additional hours there. Let me look here. The criminal is really where we're seeing a steady increase, and East Grand Forks is experiencing the same thing. Last year our criminal alone was 117,000. Our whole budget line was 110. In 2020, our civil fees came in at 31,000. In 2019, let me let that load. Our criminal was 95,000 and civil was 41. Total budget spent was 136,000 of 110 budgeted. So we haven't done a very good job adjusting, which makes these types of conversations a little bit easier if we're basing it on more actual numbers. So that's it's kind of a conglomeration of things there.
I think with the civil down the road, with Epitome Energy, there's gonna be some more legal questions that need to be answered. So, I think we're gonna be using.
I also think that might be hard to budget for, the civil part of it, because of the different things that we don't know what we're gonna run into down the road. Am I correct on that, or?
It is very challenging. So here's one of the main issues. When we try to keep that civil number down, we also have to be respectful of the law firm that we're asking to do the hours. You can't pay someone 400 hours and expect 2,000. So we're going to have to be careful there. Having a full-time city attorney as an employee does alleviate that a little bit, but then you are looking at, salary benefits like you would on a full-time employee. I did visit with Corky. Could there be something that could come up that would be really outside of our normal day-to-day? Certainly. What would likely have to happen at that point is come before you, have an understanding of our best estimate on what that looks like and time spent, and discuss that at that time. Or you stay hourly. So there's kind of trade-offs either way there. Budgeting purposes, having a set amount is certainly a little bit more steady, where doing it by the hour could allow some flexibility in that way. Does make it a little bit more challenging sometimes to know what's coming up. So I don't have a perfect answer on.
I guess, to me, this is one of those categories that the actuals and running balances, so
Yep.
that you know where you're at throughout the year and how we're sitting, so that we are intelligently saying we need to go up by this much or down by this much. So I think, if you set precedents through here of this year, you've budgeted quite a bit. We do have a few things that are coming up, and just like say, though, let's kind of watch that category and see, because, when you go $30,000 over budget and nobody here knows anything about it or why it was or whatever, we wouldn't let that happen in the, Park and Rec department, and if they needed a mower, they just went and got it. I mean, they always let us know. So it's just a matter of more of we're getting into a time where we're gonna have to face the music here for this. We certainly don't want to go backwards. I mean, as far as like on the criminal stuff, it's like when they first started with that Pine to Prairie Task Force, people said, well, why do we need that? We don't even have a drug problem in this town, Well, they found that they did. And I mean, and that's what we're finding every year, is that, we're taking care of business, and the better they get at it, it probably is costing us more, but in the long run, it should save us the heartache later,
Yeah.
so.
And with your criminal, it's enforcement of your laws, but it's also that some of those people that are charged or ticketed, if you will, are contesting. That does require our prosecuting attorney more time in court. It's just a shift all around in the legal world, I think, and how people are handling that. There's shifts in how the courts are handling cases since COVID. All of those things have compounded here. I would appreciate some guidance, though, on or feedback on where we're sitting here. I have it plugged in as where your criminal continues to be billed hourly, and I don't know that we could really get around that. But I have it plugged in where your civil was at 60. Can I get feedback from you on thoughts or?
Can I ask a couple of questions, Amy?
Sure.
One is, and I think like alluding to what Wayne had said, and I know that you guys are working really hard to balance the budget and kind of dig through some of the things that haven't necessarily always been as clear as they could be. But I think, I think Steve also mentioned it, that once we're able to kind of get through this year, to be able to kind of see those actuals versus budgeted and have that to make more educated decisions in the future would be really helpful. And I know that's kind of the way you're going. I think there's also some things that, too, one is trending criminally. It seems across the country that these types of things are going up. It's not just the next city over. And so I'm not surprised. And I think that we need to be more realistic about that. And I think the other piece, too, is as far as the civil is concerned, I think that there's definitely some things in our charter that need to be cleaned up. I know that there's some people who have approached me saying, hey, we've been wanting to bring in some type of brewery or some type of like spirits, and our charter doesn't necessarily address those things. And so I know that those are possibly going to be coming up in the future. And I think that, this is kind of a time that maybe not necessarily civil is going to be what it is right now, but I think there's still some things that we're cleaning up. And I just think about, the issue with the land that we received and then had to give back to the state, and just contracts that have been sitting around forever and now being caught and dealt with appropriately. And I think ultimately in the end, I know it's important for us to kind of stick with our budget, but at the same time, I think the liability against the city, we cannot cut corners, because what's costing us maybe $1 today could cost us $20 later if we're really more worried about, $4,000 more versus us being covered appropriately as a city.
I think the other, in my vision, what I like to see, I mean, is better housekeeping. I mean, we don't get a monthly budget, what we spent for the prior month ever.
I know,
And we need
well,
that.
I
I mean, the August, you should have everything audited and done, that's by state law. And we haven't seen any of that. And to make this decision is hard for me because I don't care if they're unaudited funds, that's better to me, it gives you the ballpark.
Well, but unaudited funds sometimes means journal entries haven't been done. And then if we give you a report and journal entries aren't done and have to be done later, you don't have an accurate report in front of you. And
But we
you are,
need the reports, that's the key.
we are working really, really hard on that. Our audit should be in front of you on Monday.
I mean, this goes back years, the 7 years I've been on here about not getting the financials like you should get them. And I know it's a lot of work, I get that. But at the end of the day, that's what should drive us to make educated decisions on spending, because we know what we spent that last month. We know where we are. We have the actual in front of us. And like I said, there's no way in the country can run a business like this. I think we really need to.
I do agree with you, but Councilmember Erickson, you and I visited on Friday. Internally, we have a process for that happening right now. By the second council meeting of every month, you will have reconciled reports. If I give it to you now, which I could print it and give it to you right now, we are waiting to do some of the final 2020 journal entries. There were some things that needed to be cleaned up that have been outstanding for years and years. I really don't think it's helpful if I give something to you and then ask you very shortly thereafter to forget what you wrote down or looked through and give you an accurate. We will be giving you monthly at the very moment that we have our finalized 2020 journal entries. Internally, we have that process down, deadlines down. But if a 2020 entry happens, it very well could affect what you are looking at in your August 31st, 2021 report. And I want to make sure when I'm handing you, what you get in a meeting is a public document. And I want to make sure that what is going out there is accurate, and you would probably like that as well when you are answering questions. So I have heard that from each of you. I also agree, it's very hard as your city administrator to prepare a budget, to answer questions for you about budgets and expenses without some of those things. And we have been working really hard both on the audit and the budget at the same time.
So in the past, and I mean, and I know before you it was happening as well, is it mainly not enough man hours that you have available to get it done?
No,
Or is it
I think when I came, we were consistently 3 to 5 months behind on reconciling. And that was it was a priority of mine. We've been working on that since I came. Internally, we have our process down really good. So once we get that 2020 audit, which I did not anticipate would still be working on, one of the issues we found was there have been some outstanding items that really needed to be cleaned up that have been identified in prior year audits. When we went to work on those, the supporting documentation, the backup, the justification for the numbers we had weren't there, and some of those had to be backed into and rebuilt, if you will, and that has taken more time than we anticipated. We didn't realize some of that wasn't there. Outside of that, that is really the reason we have, I decided not to do the monthly reports yet until we know that that is really solid and cleaned up. However, as soon as those are done, our internal process is solid. So when those end of year 2020 journal entries are in and we run that report for you, it's ready and it's solid and good to go. So we are ready. We are doing that internally now. It's not that it's not happening, but I want to make sure when I hand out, especially if it is going to be out to the public, that it's accurate and that all of us can answer those
I
things.
mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, I get what you got here, you got a mess or whatever, but at the end of the day, starting in 2021 and 22, from here on, I mean, we need to be better at trying to get those journals up to date monthly, so when we have our financials from January, by February, we have some idea.
Our internal journal entries are not what's at issue here. It is those cleanup items that we need to make an adjustment. I'm going to give you one example. The airport fund. The local match of projects has not been budgeted year after year after year after year after year. But you know what? It is spent. And it hits a reserve line. And that reserve line right now shows a deficit balance in the hundreds of thousands. That has to be offset, and it'll come before you for your approval, but it has to be offset with a journal entry from the general fund. We have to clean that up. So there's those types of entries. Our regular day-to-day, month-to-month journal entries, that process, we're on target, we're ready to go. We just have to get some of these end-of-year 2020 cleanup items done. The auditors have provided us worksheets so that we are making sure we have all of that backup documentation as we get, which the end of 2021 is right around the corner. We do not anticipate being in the same situation that we were in for this audit.
That's all we expect,
And I
you
can
know.
really understand what you're saying, because of the fact that we haven't done this before, in the 2.5 years I've been here. And I really think you're really doing a good job trying to get all these messes straightened out, and it sounds like we're moving forward. It really does. I really appreciate what you're doing right now, because it looks like, it makes a lot of sense. We need to keep on supporting.
So it's really not a personnel issue, not having enough staff to get it done, or is it what about a technology? Is some of our technology that we're using, if some of that stuff was better, would that help with some of this stuff, or?
I think that what we were using was some paper ledgers and things, and that was not working. I'd say our financial system is good. We don't feel like we're quite at that stage to flip to needing another full-time person. We did have, and it is still in, a part-time person that we hope to be able to partner with UMC for data entry. That can certainly help with accounts payable and payroll, and all of those things do flow in. Accounts payable has to be accurate for month reports to be accurate, and for what's on your agendas.
So, I mean, are we, from what Steve is saying, like, you know, in businesses, we get a monthly operating report?
Yeah.
So is that kind of what we're gearing towards?
Yes.
And the operating report will be out by a certain day, is that?
Yes. By your second, and I'm not sure yet, I haven't thought all the way through if, I would like it to be a public document and maybe even just issued as a separate monthly report with your second council agenda of the month, so that you always know, and I always know, and staff has that good target of deadlines. It helps us plan internally, but it helps you too. If you want to go back and look at something, you can always know, pull your email or your agenda from that second council meeting and have it in there.
So if I'm understanding correctly, you could give it right now, but the numbers are not final.
Correct. I'm just a little hesitant until we get all those 2020, because if you make an entry to your December 31st, 2020 entry, it is going to carry through, where some of those are going to be reserve balances that'll come before you. I don't want to give you something that in the end is harmful to you and not helpful to you to have.
So, I don't know if this is a dumb question or not, but so that we gave about $350,000, or not about, we gave $350,000 to Cheetah, and that, some of that money is still sitting in their account. Can any of that money be brought back to help us with our current financial?
It certainly could. I believe the proper process would probably be the council, maybe by resolution, to make that request of Cheetah, and then it would be presented to the Cheetah board.
Is it, am I correct in saying it's a little bit above 200,000? Does that sound right?
It does. I was thinking just above 200,000 is what I was recalling.
I mean, does anybody else think that would be
I don't think I'd take the whole works away from them.
What's that?
I don't think I'd take the whole works.
I think, I'd like to wait a bit, just, you know, let's get a community development director on board, get some input between Amy, maybe the person we hire.
But,
I don't know if that's gonna go towards projects or, I don't know.
so I
Still,
mean,
As far as
if
expenditures
cheated-
out there, I mean, there's gotta be some out there, the daycare issue, some of that was allocated for that and different things, which, you know, hate to pull it all out of there, and then all of a sudden we get some daycares that's ready to go or whatever, we don't have the money.
well, right, but I mean, in my opinion, the way it should have been done, instead of giving a lump sum, if they needed something, they come to the city in an individual basis on certain items and say, okay, yeah, we agree, and let's give this $30,000 for a daycare issue instead of, you know.
I mean, why couldn't it be done that way right now? We're saying, all right, you know, now flip-flop and say, you know, it's in that fund. Now it's a council issue that says, you know what, we need this for a project, let's take it out of there and put it towards daycare or whatever. You know,
right.
like I said, the money's in there for that reason, for, you know, future businesses, future different things. I mean, we could still pull off it, and I'm totally.
Well, and I hear you, but I'm trying to think of a way to maybe help lower maybe the levy and still get some funds in there to help support, you know, what the current budget is, I mean, does that make sense at all, or is that just a dumb idea?
No, it's not a dumb idea at all. I hear where you're coming from. Yes, go
Sorry.
ahead.
Sorry, Dale, I didn't mean to. Did you want to say something?
Go ahead.
Okay. I was just saying, like, similar to what Plat's saying, you know, if we allocated that for something specifically, absolutely keeping that money in there for something. But when we're trying to justify this larger levy and those monies are just sitting there and they're not allocated to anything. And from what I understand historically, and if it's not, my understanding was that was supposedly earmarked for some land that was to be purchased, and that land wasn't purchased. And so here we have these monies that are sitting there that don't have a clear allocation at this moment, and yet, you know, we're having to make these hard decisions with this levy.
For what?
Red Barn area.
At that one? No, I had it in municipal in the building with a guess of what I thought. Maybe. I'm just gonna, I'm just processing, so I'm a verbal processor, so I'm just gonna share my thoughts with you. Remember and keep in mind that would kind of be a one-time pump in. So I've tried, it's not a dumb idea. It would certainly work. How you spread that amongst your levied funds wouldn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it would affect the levy the same way, regardless of how you spread that amongst your four funds. If you took in a little boost or a shot from that pool of money, we would want to budget for that. Coming in, we'd have to look at what line to bring that in. But that would, whatever amount that was, it would then lower your balance that still requires funding from those levied funds, and would help you with your total levy.
I mean, is it, let's just, and I don't know if you can give me this answer now, but let's just say we as a group decided to bring 200,000 of that over. What would that, you know, lower the levy to?
I think I can give you at least an estimate on that, realizing that each percent has a bit of a swing
Yeah.
because of the 40,000, but let me just,
You know,
so,
last year, our levy, every levy brought in $18,000. How did we get up to 40?
last year, the levy brought in 18.
That's what we were told last year, $18,000 a levy.
So you're saying every percent of levy is 18?
Yeah,
Not this year, it's
that's what I
it's
said. Now it went
41.
up to 40, so how did we get to 40?
Yeah, see, you got to 41 by taking 1% of the total.
Yeah, what
But
fluctuate your
you
1%?
Can't do that though, because you gotta take it on just the tax you're collecting. So LGA's not gonna change by that.
No, I figured that only on your levy.
And that should be on $2,322,000, which would give you $23,220 per 1%.
You take it and you divide it by the rate, and it tells you what, so that's what I'm gonna figure here real quick, but what we looked at, what I wanted to see is what dollar amount fluctuates you 1%. So that's the 41. And I'll calculate on last year's here. I had total dollar amount. So the way I calculate that is $40,000, $40,200 last year on your certified levy would have shifted you 1%. I'm not sure though what calculation was used to get the 18. I'm just not sure.
Yeah, I have no idea, but that's what we've been told all along is 1%.
I think the worst case scenario was 21,000 at,
Pardon
for
me?
every, I mean, over the last 7 years, and one I can remember was 21,000 for every 1%. And like I said, I have no idea how she figured it out either, but,
I even tested it to make sure it worked right, but
Okay, my son works up at the courthouse.
yeah, he helped us.
And I had him over there at my house this weekend because I didn't understand this for sure, how he got, like he said, from 18 to, and he agrees that 1% of the levy is if you go by the net 1% of the tax capacity, not 1% of, because you can't add it to the, what the LGA can't be added in there because you're not gonna change that one way or the other.
We don't, that's not with LGA in. What I looked at is what dollar amount shifted your levy rate. So right now, what we're looking at we're at 62.870. So you take your levy divided by 62.870 and you should get about 41,000. So look, what I wanted to see was what does 1% shift look like in those levied dollars?
Well, he had 62.40, but then he's got 1% levy is 23,220.
He calculated on net tax capacity. I wanted to
Right.
see, of our levied dollars, what dollar amount shifts you from 58% levy to 57 or 58 to 59. That's what I was calculating, not on net tax capacity, which your levy and your rate are all connected with your net tax capacity, actually. But what I was trying to see is what dollar amount shifts you 1% of your levied dollars. And I have the calculations, this spreadsheet is not in a format that is appropriate for public consumption because of my notes and things, but I would be happy to sit down with you guys. And so the question was if we put 200 in as a boost, let's say, to our levied funds, what would that do?
And did I miss something? Is that coming out of that 350 that, isn't
So
there?
it's coming out of that 350,000 lump sum that the council agreed just to give to Cheetah.
About 110 or 100 grand's already been spent.
I think
Right.
more than that, because there was 50 grand set aside for childcare, and there was 100 and some spent, so I think you better find out for sure what's left in there.
We can very easily get that from Teresa.
If I remember
You would
right,
hate to have businesses coming in that need money and all of a sudden there's none. Because that's eventually gonna go towards your tax bracket and stuff like that, so you gotta make sure we have money in there.
But
for
wasn't
stuff.
that explained to us one time that money was put into the budget on a line budget for economic development? And that if we gave it to Cheetah, they could give it back to us, but it had to be used for economic development. That's the way I heard it, correct me if I'm wrong.
I would have to research that a little bit, or read some minutes or something, but.
Because you can't just jack it up and get extra money and set it aside and take it back and put it into your regular,
We
checkbook
could do
there,
it too,
general
if
fund.
we were kinda in a hard times too, use it, balance our budget somewhat.
Well, what if, like I said, you know, for economic development, where does that money come back then? If we already have the budget for the year and we spent our 200,000 or 180 or whatever, that's set aside for economic development, we spend that, bring it back, put it in our general account, balance the budget, get a business, needs financial, like Joe or whatever said, you know, that's what that money's for also. Then where do we come up with that 100,000?
I mean, I think we can debate that, but I just would like to know, based on 200,000, what would that lower the levy?
When I put that in, so that would put you at a 2.62 increase over your certified levy in 2021.
So we'd increase the levy by 2%?
2.6.
So we go down almost 8.5%. Well, I mean, it's just something to consider. I mean, it's like, I mean,
I would say if you had 200 grand in there, I wouldn't take any more than 100 out of there. At least leave at least 100.
I would like also to have a better historical context understanding of what those dollars were for. Because my understanding was that those were allocated to purchase land, very specific pieces, which didn't happen. So if that's the case, that's one thing to consider. If it was just put in there for economic development, that would be another conversation. But I'd really like to know, it sounds like everybody kind of has a different story about why and how those monies are there. So if we can get a clearer understanding of why those were allocated and what the actual dollars were meant for, I think that would help us make a better decision.
I think some of those dollars were also too, if you're an existing business or a person wanting to start a business, you come out to Cheetah and you try and start a business and you're looking for some help in some sort of ways, now if he doesn't have any funds or she doesn't have any funds there to work with, now they gotta come back to the council every time.
right, and that's,
You know, and that's
to
where
me, that's the way it should be. I mean, that's the transparent way of doing things. Because like in the past, I asked one question after that $350,000 before I got on the council. I asked the current council member, I said, when has Cheetah ever been denied of getting funds for a worthwhile project? And the person says, never.
But
Well, I'm like, why? Well, then why would you give a big, large lump sum like we did?
if you don't have a budget and now we're in crisis, if you take that money, you're not gonna be able to give it to them if something
Well,
does
I
come
mean,
up.
yep.
So that's why he's
Maybe
saying
we
we
are
should
in,
have it.
maybe we are in crisis if we're going up 10% and we can avoid our taxpayers giving, a large.
Delane, I think part of that was back when we got a big bounce in LGA. And we put that in there for economic development. And that was, I won't mention any names, but there's guys that wanted that money over to Cheetah so that they could do their programs and know that they had their money. It had always worked before about come with something, come with a program or project, we'll fund you. But they wanted to change that system and put money out there so that they could just do whatever they wanted to out there with that. And it was already council approved, it was already given, and it was like an open checkbook in my estimate.
Right.
And some of it worked and some of it didn't. And then this other 350 though was for a different project. And that was to go along with purchasing lands and buildings, whatever. And so, I mean, having the money there, yes, there was nothing going crooked or wrong with it, but it's just the way they thought it would make it smoother if you could talk to you about your business and knowing that I got this in the bank. And that I can guarantee you, where otherwise I'm gonna have to say, okay, I think I can get this for you if I go to council. And
Right. I hear you, but I mean.
was it right or was it
It's-
wrong? I don't know, but that's how it happened,
Right,
so.
that money belongs to our citizens of Crookston, correct? I mean, it was tax money that we,
Right,
and
but it
it all
was,
didn't come from LGA or, I mean,
well, it could have all come from LGA or come from part.
okay.
But you actually, what we did with that time period was rather than knock the taxes down below, where you lower the taxes, we kept it in there and we put it in for economic development. And so that way you had some money to go out after a company or go out and try and get, some land acquisition or try to do different things. So you had that, and I think that's how it all kind of got started. And then, like I say, we kind of lost control of it, and it went out there. It's still, yes, it's still the money. It was always told it could be brought back, but I was always told that if you bring it back, you have to bring it back for economic development, because that's what you had it in your budget for back then. I don't know if that's true or false.
But a lot of the reason why the levy is, as Amy explained last weekend, is because of some of the things that were being brought up that we weren't finding out about. And she is now finding out about these things, trying to reconcile and trying to get it so that we're not in big trouble, even worse trouble in many years to come. Is that correct, Amy? Is that kind of what we were talking about last week?
It is.
I mean,
But
I
if you
understand people won't be happy with like a 10% raise. I got it. I mean, but if we don't do something to reconcile what you're finding out of, that the council wasn't hearing and wasn't appropriately told, if we don't fix that pretty soon, it's going to be a much greater thing in years to come.
Well, right, it's kicking the can down
Yeah.
the road, and we can't
We
continue.
can't do
Right,
that. We have
and I
to-
do agree. Some of the things were really out of anyone's control this year. The loss of our investment income portfolio, that hit our whole levied funds and non-levied funds really hard. This year, we hope, like all of us, that the value of the dollar goes back up. But there were also other things. Yes, you are correct, Councilmember Kressel, that we weren't showing you actuals. You weren't seeing that. You were seeing things that looked really tidy in the budget that really weren't.
Like, I mean, just the loss of the pool, the loss of the CSC, stuff like that. Them are two huge hits.
They are.
That we're taking, that it's nice to see exactly what those are.
Yes.
And if that's something that's like almost yearly, which I can probably say maybe not high, maybe you can't really tell, but there's gonna be a loss in those two
There
for
will.
now, for
Yeah.
year to come. If we can get this fixed and somewhat budget for that, it'll be a lot easier.
Yes, and start closing the gap by increasing usage
Right.
and those things, right. I do want to remind you that today, I need to have some direction from you, because Monday, on the 27th, we do need you to approve your max preliminary levy, and then as a reminder, you won't do your final levy until December. So Monday, I need to know from you today really where you need me to be for max levy on Monday for approval.
Okay, what I would like to know is right now with this sheet that you gave us with the budget reductions and adjustments, okay? That's been worked into this spreadsheet for the 2022% levy increase?
That actually,
Where you
was
got the
the
blue
s-
box around here?
this worksheet is actually the same. I just highlighted for us what a 10% would look like.
So I'm just saying, with those reductions, have they been figured into this or
Well,
not?
Did you get down to the 10% is what you're
yes,
asking?
we did get down to, but this spreadsheet with the blue around it, Chad, could you put up my number 3, please? That actually is the same worksheet, because it's just showing impact at if you set the levy at 4.5 up to 12. So that is actually the same, and we just used a straight percentage on that.
See, I guess what I don't get is, tell me what you need.
Well,
If you take this out of here, what's the number, and what do we need to get to the number we
So-
need right now?
with the reductions, what you have in front, the 2022 budget worksheet, that top one, down at the bottom, next to the right column, shows a levy of 2,584,484. Below that, I showed you your 2021 certified levy. At the last meeting, I understood the instructions to be to show you what a 10%, to get us to 10, when we were talking about setting max levy. And so that's what I've showed you here. And that is, the reductions that you see are figured in there, as well as some of the ones we talked about on the budgets that you had seen, we had already done the airport, the resheeting of the hangar. It was $45,000 that was actually, will remain unspent in 2021. We removed that from the 22 budget, and we will reserve that this year.
In your opinion, now that you're down to the 10, if we try to cut below that at this point, would it affect City of Crookston services?
I think depending on which way it goes, it could. There are things you can cut that will not affect maybe your citizen and their pothole, but may affect how we're able to get that done. We've tried really hard to stay away from things that will impact personnel or the things that they need to do their job. My concern truly is today deciding to go much lower and then again going much lower by December, because I think if we do that, we will have to make some decisions about taking care of things that need to be taken care of or impacting services or personnel, and
When would, like Wayne brought up a point of, he doesn't know if any of that money from Cheetah can be used to help us in our budget. So I mean.
We have till
What-
December for that point, do we not?
you do, yes.
Right now, we're just setting a top.
On Monday, which is the 27th, I believe, so by September 30th, which is Wednesday, we need to have our maximum preliminary levy filed with the county. So then you have until we certify the final in December.
Yeah, I don't know how we do it or whatever. I mean, if 10%'s the number, I would like to see if we could reduce the levy by utilizing some of the monies from Cheetah, whatever amount, maybe to get us down to say, let's just say even 5 or
It'll never get there.
7 or.
It'll never get to 5. You're lucky if we're gonna be able to lower 1 or 2% that, the way
I
she was
thought-
talking last week.
No, I thought she said if we used,
If you bring in a
200,000, that's taking everything.
one-time boost. One thing, and I'll be careful about communicating this to you. I want to be careful, and I've tried to even with our reserves. We have some wiggle room in reserves as well. We could pull in a little bit more from general fund. I tried to be careful not to present to you reserves that are supporting operations versus what we tried to show you was reserves that were maybe, like some of our general fund, that 250,000 is to help offset getting some of our IT infrastructure up literally off the ground. I mean, we are scouring the United States for spares on eBay, and that's really the truth, so that Chad at least has something in his hand if.
City has to have some reserves for emergencies and.
so what do we have on reserve and what's a good rule of thumb of what we should have on reserves?
We have a fund balance reserve policy. So one thing I know what we have right now, and I believe before our latest LGA payment, it's close to 3 million in general fund, but I also know that 400,000 of that, I'm gonna be asking you to clear up that deficit balance in the airport. So we need to really look at what our fund balance reserve policy says, and what it tells us is if we exceed a certain amount, a certain percentage of operating revenues that we can ask the governing body to transfer into municipal land and building. That's what I've not seen happening. And it may mean that there wasn't a sufficient reserve balance. We gotta back into that a little bit.
When we talk about revenues, I mean, like out at the airport, do the hangars that we rent out, do they even come close to breaking even?
The airport actually only receives a very small amount of our tax levy. It seems to be operating pretty well. We just looked, his revenues, I think as of August, were at about 60%. We're about 67% through the year, but his expenditures were low as well.
Well, that's what I say when I see we got roofs and remodeling the sides of the hangars and stuff. Are we getting even close to getting our money back on all these things? I mean.
Well, yes, I think the airport is doing well as far as revenues and expenditures staying low, but the longer we continue to not take care of our buildings, we're gonna be right back here talking about some of that stuff. And I know from looking back, a lot of the stuff at the airport has been deferred many times. There's some things this year, I can't remember what that 45,000 was, that he said just based on materials, I think it had to do with sheet metal. He wasn't planning to do that this year because of the cost. So we discussed that we will reserve that at the end of the year, and hopefully in 2022, materials will come down to a more reasonable price.
Cost
Well, that's
of,
right.
cost of metal is skyrocketing.
That's what
right now.
yeah. that's
But
what
I
he
was
said.
looking at them too today, and I mean, if you're gonna, you know, re-side some of them and re-roof them, I agree, do the roof. If the thing's leaking, you're gonna wreck it a lot more, but if it's just because the color of the paint and stuff is all faded, but we wanna re-side it, that can wait another year, you know.
I
I'd
don't,
like to see us, you know, over time here now, it's like, you know, let's look at bonding and stuff for different things. We have lots of buildings out here, and it's like, you know, maybe we need to send a crew and go through them all and say, this is what we need to fix them all up. Tie that in with the bonding of something else, whether it's a road for the soybean innovation center or whatever, it's because I know we weren't gonna bond for that, but there's other ways to do this instead of trying to, you know, $35,000 in your budget is a huge hit. And it's one of those things, that's just one building we're fixing, and we
Right.
don't even know if it's gonna cover that. And that, we can't operate like that, to have these high expenditure fixtures and fix stuff like that. I'd rather just say, let's fix all our buildings, get everything up, we should be good for 30 years. You bond, you get it done with, now you don't have those big hits on there, and I think we gotta look at some of that stuff coming up in the future.
we are planning to, we've talked at staff level, we're gonna have to have someone that's certified to analyze the pool, because there's some specialty things there. I would like to understand the age and condition of all of our HVAC, our roofs, our windows. I just learned today, some of our HVAC units on our roof here that are in need of repair are 20 years old. We were lucky to get a part. The libraries is 37 years old, but we do not have a good comprehensive analysis of that. I would like to see it in a 1 to 3, 3 to 5, maybe 5 to 10 layout, and then determine what is immediate needs, what can we do, what would the cost be, and work with our financial advisors to help us understand what a bond payment would be, those types of things. So we will, and we are planning to work on that in the 2022 calendar year, of getting a good idea on all of that. Most of our buildings are aging. I have seen some history of not the best upkeep, just from deferring certain things, also not understanding exactly what we have. I just learned today through happenstance, because we need a repair, that our 4 units up there are 20 years old. So it's a bit unnerving that our buildings and our equipment are aging, and as they reach that same age, if everything starts going down at once, we'll be in.
I mean, to me, it's kind of a, you know, you're taking, you know, whether you're taking the 200,000 off, but that's a Band-Aid on the problem. I mean, so now you just spend all your economic development money, and you say you have a business that comes in, it's like, oh, I need 100,000 to get, you know, rolling and get this business going. Well, now we gotta dig for that. You know, it's one of those things, you know, economic development, if we did it right, the more business we get, the less taxes we got, you know, it's one of those things, that's what pays to keep our taxes and levies low, is getting more businesses on the payroll.
But I hear you, Steve, but I mean, come to the, you know, if economic development needs it, then come to the city and ask for it, and if
We
we
don't
got.
have it.
But if you spent 200 out of account that was
Well, right,
sitting there
but
for
that's
that,
why I
you
was
got it?
opposed giving that money in the first
Well,
place.
Remember when
mean,
that went through, though, the other problem is it was going back to the general fund, which nobody wanted, because when
Right.
it disappeared, we have nothing. You know, if it's in the account in the general fund, it offsets a lot of things, it just disappears and it's gone. It was specified for economic development, land purchase and whatever, and that's important. I mean, we have to have some fund in there to draw in economic development, you know, and it's just a vicious cycle of.
Well, to me, the money was put in there to skirt the city of Crookston and the elected members to come and ask for money for different projects. That's what I thought about the 350,000. I mean, so I
I'm not
mean.
saying it was right or wrong back then. What I'm saying is, you know, in the future of we can't just spend all our money and then not have any for economic
So,
development.
I mean, and I'm fine, just for the record, it looks like I'm the only one wanting to get some of that money back to help with our levy relief.
Well, and right now, the way it's operating, us as council are in control of that money through Cheetah anyway. We are the Cheetah board.
Right,
so-
but I mean-
you're gonna see those funds, which you may didn't see before because of how it was handled. It will be seen now, one way or
You
the
know, I'm
other.
not saying take 100,000 on whatever the council decides, but at the end of the day, we have to have some kind of balance in there to promote
So
economic
before,
development.
so let me ask you this, before that 350,000 got there, how did Cheetah operate without that there?
That was way before my time, but,
Well,
you
but
know,
did they come to the city?
There wasn't
and say,
really,
"Hey,
there
we
wasn't
need-"
much
always
for
do,
Cheetah, was
yeah.
there at that point in time?
Each and every time they needed something, they came. If they had a
Yeah, I mean,
project,
the 350,000 was right at your time. 'Cause- But before that, you were on the council. If something needed, if Cheetah needed some funding for something, Wayne, correct me if I'm wrong, they came to council, and if it was worthwhile and the council agreed, then the money got transferred, right?
It did, but I mean, that was another one.
But so like I said, the 350,000 was granted, so they didn't have to come to the city and ask for every single.
well, that 350 was granted them for those certain buildings that they wanted to buy, and projects or land. That was a whole separate thing than what a budget item was prior. This was a whole different ballgame. I think this came out of lands and municipal buildings, I believe, for a specific reason, to go over to Cheetah so that they could purchase those things. And that was, I don't remember what year it'd have been, 18? And everybody always asked, what if they don't use it? And we were always told it could come back, but it had to be used for that. I don't think right now, Delane, that we should bank on that as far as dropping the percentage rate. I think what we should do now is, what I was trying to get at is, if we go to 10%, will that cover what we got on the books for our budget for 2022? If we okay that now, then between now and December, we can go back and see just any projects that need to be funded or don't need to be funded, or what we've actually got for reserve, what we've got there. Then you can make your final number. But I mean, if we stay with a high enough, with 10, and nobody really wants to see a 10, but maybe one time you might have to have that to get some things cleared up and get things going because of the swimming pool and different things that didn't get covered, or just the pandemic and all the crazy stuff that's going on. And so if we can do that and agree on that number, that we won't go higher than that, and then between now and the end of the year, you figure out exactly where you're at, exactly what these, the 1% and all this stuff comes out, what our tax levy rate is, and then we refigure it from there. And then you've got that money over there in case we did figure wrong, or if something hits crazy or that type of thing, so that you're not shorting yourself there either. And looking at this at 10%, I know they had that numbers in the paper wrong, and I got quite a few phone calls and talking with one of the guys, and after I explained it to him, that, well, on a $200,000 home, your annual tax rate going up is $71.47 for the city
And that
portion.
is over if you set at a 4%.
Right.
Because that was kind of our average anyway, yeah.
You're saying what now, Wayne?
$71.47 over the 4%. So you're saying actually then what does 4%
Well-
start at for an increase?
35.
Well, the 1,063.90 is the annual for 4%. So down here, the 1135.37 is $71.41. Or I hope my math was right on that.
Okay, so if you're going up on a $200,000 home, $71 a year, that's less than a pack of cigarettes a month. But I'm just saying, we can, this is something I think you can live with. It's $5.96 a month for a year.
It's more the business side that really.
The
starts
business
to
side
get wet.
at 200,000 is 158.16, or or $13.18 a month.
Yeah, but you look at the totals on that, I mean,
But Steve, look at the total at 4%. You're still at 2,300, and I
I
know
get
that's,
that, but-
that is a big number, and that's, I know, I tried to make a few updates to this chart to make it a little bit easier to follow, but I wanted you to be able to see what the city tax levy would impact as a total, but then also see what an increase is, because it's hard to talk about percentages and millions of dollars of levies and help ourselves and the public understand really what that means to them.
I think I've said that for the 7 years I've been on here, but we have to educate the public, you know, and it's one of those things we talked about on Friday. It's like, why are we got the 10%? Well, we got this coming on, we got the pool, and we need to be transparent with that stuff so people understand the pool's not free.
Right.
The arena, I mean, we heard complaints about that, but it brings, you know, hopefully it's gonna get better, bigger, we got a new
Yeah.
person, you know, you gotta look at that, and that's the other thing I'd like to see is revenue side too. It's like, okay, you know, that, for me, to see the whole picture, I
And
need to
you
see the
will.
revenue side too.
On your monthly reports, you will get to see both revenue and expense for each fund.
Is there a program or a spreadsheet that shows what we've got for housing incentives or business incentives of, like I saw the county's one and it says, okay, this address and it said this year and it was first year of 2, third year
Like an
of 6.
assessment?
You know, like for Titan, you know, how many years are they having an abatement or?
2 years on a new house.
Yeah, I know, but how many houses have we got that,
Yeah.
and when did they get finished, and when do they come off? So that's gonna be a revenue increase. And the
Okay,
same
I
thing
think
with-
we can get that. Yeah, I
you know,
think
and the
we
same with
have,
Titan, that'll be a revenue increase if they come off of that, or have they already come
I
off?
think they already did, I
I
believe.
think we already did too.
Nobody seems to know, everybody is always, I think, oh, I don't know. I'm just saying, could we get
I
that,
will check on that for you,
you
yeah.
know?
That
Yeah.
changes the whole picture down the road, and that's like I said, having both sides of the budget side is really nice to be able to say, you know what? Because what really drew me on this was the pool deficit, because we sat and we hashed that out for months, and it's like, so the revenue side said it was gonna be a gentle increase, like not even for 0.5% in a levy increase to run that thing. And well, I haven't seen anything,
I
but we
mean,
had 2,000,
well,
I
that
know
may
it's-
be, that may be true in the sense that if they were, and I'd have to go back, I don't know if I could listen to it or not, but it could be true to say, year over year, you could have to increase 0.5% of a levy as costs of an aging pool goes up, but it's not 0.5% to operate.
Because you know, we may not even own that thing if that was, if the council at that time
Yeah.
would have seen numbers like that, you know, I mean, I wouldn't have voted for it.
I
And that's what
imagine that
kills
would have been
me,
a different conversation.
Just take those numbers and that are thrown in front of you to make an educated decision, and 3 years later, whatever, they're totally whacked. I mean, to me, what went wrong, I don't know.
I
Not
don't know
blaming
either,
anybody,
but
at the end of the day.
if I could go back and fix some of those
You know,
things, I
or
would
was that a
too.
one-time thing because we paid for all those or, you know, they did the bottom of the pool, they did, as long as it was closed, I think, didn't they do some sealing on it? Didn't they put in
Did all
some
the lights on it.
bleachers, the lights? I mean, maybe it's the 1 year that they had no income and it was all expense.
Well,
That would
this was,
explain a lot.
this was
That was the
ours.
school that was doing all.
Yeah, I think the school did some of the upkeep, but this, and I don't know what they had shown or how they would have shown revenue. It probably was
There was a lot of it
difficult.
in the swimming lessons and all
Yeah.
that, because the numbers that
And-
they had put together was a nice package.
And
like
I'm
you said.
sure that was difficult to project without having had those programs before. That probably really was a shot in the dark maybe, or a best guess. And I was excited. It looks like going into next year and this year also, revenues are up at the pool. And I think Braden has done a really nice job with some programming and getting usage. I don't mean that's all we can do. I just don't know that we'll ever see our pool bringing in almost $250,000 in revenue. I just don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Maybe if we left it at 10% and everybody's kind of saying that they don't know what's going on, if they look at the chart, they can actually, I like the way Wayne explained it, when he brought it down to what's gonna cost for a house, which taxes are gonna be or whatever. You know, I think if you look at that,
I do,
give some answers out to the people who left it at 10% right now.
And I am happy to answer any questions if you all receive any. I'm happy to talk to anybody. If you just let me know, I'd be happy to with you or a citizen. I do think we have to set our max levy. We know we can't go up from that. That doesn't mean we cannot continue to work and we would have more time to really thoughtfully put some things together for you to say, this is what 9% could look like, and these are the things that can come out. This is what 8% could look at, so that we can show you to do that. Even getting this list of reductions done after going through the budgets, talking, putting this together, and then updating everything in 4 days, it's challenging because you don't have as much time maybe to think, or I like to go make sure if I'm looking at a public works budget that I'm understanding from Brandon the impact that can have. I do think we can continue to work for you and show you what each percent down can look like.
I think at this point, like we discussed last week, we should just remain at the 10% because it is just a max at this time. It's not saying this is
So
what we're
Wade
gonna do.
and Steve and Tom, since you guys have been on the council the longest, whenever we've set the point of whatever we set it at this time of year for, have we ever, in your recollection, been under what we ever set it at this?
Almost every
All
time.
the time.
It's,
We've been floating at 3%, 3%, 3% forever. I think there was one time that was 5% as long as I've been on council.
Last year I'm saying, have you ever been
Four
under what we
last.
set it at?
I mean, usually that's a 7, 6, 7 for
So-
this time of year and get down to 4 or 5.
Yeah, so like when you, like this time of year, we set it at whatever, like back in the past, it was 4 or 5. Has there ever been a time where you've been under the number that you
What
set
he
it
just
at?
said, he usually sets it at 6,
Preliminary
7%.
budget,
We're
we've
down to
always
4.
been lower than our preliminary.
do you mean, do they come down in December?
Yeah.
Usually? Almost every year
Okay.
that I could see back.
Well, I would hope that's us doing our due diligence to say, you know what, we maxed it out at 10, let's shoot for 6 or 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
Decide, but,
Or 8, or,
because you
yeah.
got time now. You
6
get-
or
she's got more
7,
time to
I want
digest
to,
it and-
I do want to be honest with you, 6 or 7 is not probably taking care of all the
That
things
number
you
out
need
there,
to.
I know.
I mean, if you are doing your due diligence and responsibility, some of that is to the services we provide and the facilities we provide them in. And I'm going to be frank with you, if we get down to 6, I'm going to tell you what I think we're going to be giving up. I personally don't think that's, for me doing my job, I could throw you numbers out here that say 6%. I don't think that's a responsible way to administer the city and to provide you information. And
That's
if
why
we're-
I'm saying, if we know exactly what it takes right now to fulfill this, and that's what you're looking at,
Right
you've
here,
got
what
two
you
options.
have
You
in.
can either go, you can either raise or keep it at the 10%,
Mm-hmm.
or you can go to your special fund and take some out of there to drop it down.
Yeah.
But are you gonna be hurting yourself, or, we gotta face the music one of these days.
I'm
and
I'm
get it-
fine right now, leaving it, at the 10% and trying to do whatever we can.
Because most people will tell you, you're gonna hear some comeback, and I mean, and when they look at the number, 10 is a huge number for people, it seems like. But when you show them the actual dollar amount in today's dollars, it doesn't seem quite so bad,
But then they look at what they're getting on their raises too, and they say 10 is too much.
Well, and you know
It
what?
should be more than inflation.
Well,
Yeah,
I
tell them
think,
if we increased our tax levy at what our employees receive, you're not gonna be able to operate the city very well. So we have to, if we wanna be real, we gotta be real all the way around and talk about all those things. I'm not prepared to go down that route today, but we are an employer also. And so we have to think about that. If that's an argument, then we better be prepared to have some of those discussions too. I'm not today, but
I mean, I'd like to see us, though, set it, if we set it at 10, we set it at 10, and whatever, just keep it there, but, in the next, between now and December 7th, is now we can get the audited budget from you.
Yes.
We get the actuals, we
Yep.
can say, the information that, from you that I'd like to see is, okay, what we have for, reserves or whatever, what is
Yeah.
the bottom line we need with reserves, and if we have 3 million, then we only need 2.
Right.
I mean, there's your, instead of taking your money from your economic development, let's look at bringing that reserves down to what
Right.
the
I just
auditor
want to
says we
know,
should have it at.
I want to know once we propose those adjustments to you, which I hope is very, very soon, to clear out some of those balances, that we will know what that is and what we are really working with there. Council, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Doesn't the state have a number that you're supposed to be at, not over like 25% or 50% or?
I'm not sure if the state does. The Crookston actually has adopted, I think in 2011 or 2012, a fund balance reserve policy. We are going to take a look at that and make sure it's consistent and up to date in what we should be doing. It identifies certain thresholds then that funds can be transferred into municipal land and building, which that fund really is to acquire things and keep our buildings up to date. And I think if we really take a hard look at, one, is our policy doing what we want it to do? Is it consistent with state law and what maybe best practices? And take a look at that. I imagine we'll have that back before you at the very least for a discussion.
Because how bad off would we have been if they would have cut out LGA this year?
Very, very, very bad.
You know, that's what I'm saying. You gotta have reserves. You can't dig too deep in them. Just for that point that all of a sudden you come up and it's like, whoa.
I think, hard times where you need like 6 months operating cost.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, I don't wanna take it all out, but at the end of the day, you know, instead of taking, you know, 50,000 off something else and, you know, that 50,000 helps, you know, it's like,
Well, you get another COVID year or something happens like that, like Wayne's saying, and they drop LGA all together, and we now take our economic development, which is gonna help drive the city, and then it starts eating at our reserves, now we're screwed all the way around.
Then we
That's
would be
basically
talking at a lot more than 10%.
Yep.
Because you can tax any amount and
If that
there,
happens, we're not gonna worry about economic development, we're gonna worry about survival.
you're gonna be worrying, yes.
hopefully have running
You're-
water.
Yeah.
I recommend that we leave it at 10% right now, and then that by December, we can take it.
Consensus is 10%?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I'll go along
Yes.
to 10 as long as they try and get it down to 7.
We're definitely gonna try, Tom.
Huh?
We're definitely gonna
Try to
try.
get it down to 7.
I think we need to try, but I also think that, you know, spending $1 today versus spending $10 for something falling off a wall is also something we need to keep in mind. So are we doing ourselves any favors by being, you know, saving that 1% and then all of a sudden, you know, because we're not doing the upkeep in a timely manner on the things that we own? I think this is also a time where we're reconciling a lot of the things that we're seeing that are in poor shape, or there's a great need that I think ultimately will save us money in the long run, and I think we need to keep that in mind as well.
I
I
do
think
want
you're
to,
gonna end up having to look at, like what Steve said here is, and Amy, about looking at the state of affairs for all of our buildings and HVAC and everything else.
and maybe that'll bring us some efficiencies that we're not experiencing now to help. I'm hopeful of that. I do want to say thank you to Councilmember Jurdy. She did send me a graphic today that I think is really great that she saw of another community that kind of showed how some tax dollars were used, that I think would be a great educational tool as we move forward in these discussions for the public. So I'll work with staff on maybe using some of those features in that. I really liked how that looked. So thank you for sending that and thinking about that when you saw it.
So we have our consensus for 10.
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the evening.